the idea of combining your money with your spouse and there being this open conversation and very communicative, that only works within healthy relationships.
Right.
And so a lot of times when we start talking about that, what it does, Jason, is it exposes where people have kind of these breakdowns in their relationship, and it kind of leads to a bigger, conversation that usually involves some sort of counseling and getting to the root of, hey, why is there this trust breakdown? And why is there this kind of fear that comes up when we talk about that?
Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started.
Welcome to our next episode on the Hope in Real Life podcast. We have an incredibly special guest here with us this week, and we are talking about finances and the role that they play in our lives, the anxiety they can bring, and how we can find financial freedom. Fantastic guest. Listen, check out this accomplishment here. Co-host of The Ramsey Show, which you know we're a big fan of around here, best-selling author of her new book, Money's Not a Math Problem, and personal finance coach. She's appeared on Fox News, Cheddar News, has been featured in Fortune magazine. I have heard her recently at the Think Conference, a nationally renowned speaker. I am a bit of a fan here. Please welcome to the show our guest, Ms. Jade Warshaw. Jade, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this, on this topic of money, you got a lot of experts out there in the field. And one of the things that I really appreciate about you and about your story is you're not just an expert, but you're also what I would say is a practitioner from your story. And we'll get into that in a minute. But before we do, why don't you just let our listeners know a little bit about yourself?
Well, I started in personal finance. Our story starts over a decade ago, back in 2007. So that's when I really started kind of getting my head around just financial literacy and what it means for everyday people, myself specifically, because a lot of us, we don't learn how to manage our money, right? We don't learn it in school. We don't learn it in middle school, high school, college. And then before you know it, you're kind of out in the real world and you're really just taking on whatever culture tells you. And so for me, that education started back in 2007. My background is in entertainment. And so I've been a vocalist for the past 15 years and started a business with my husband in that area. And so that led me even deeper into personal finance because as a musician, you know how it goes. It's like feast and famine, right? It's like there's two groups of people who are historically bad with money, musicians and athletes, right? Yeah. And so there was really just this need to get our finances in order. Much of that reason was because of our debt. And that whole story is what led me to this moment in time.
Yeah. And so you just mentioned your debt. And so, and you talk about this in your book, but you and your husband at one point had about $460,000 in debt. And so to our listeners who right away may be thinking, okay, yeah, but like she's a professional, like she's not really going to be able to connect with my story. $460,000 in debt that you paid off in 7.5 years. It seems like you attribute that to budgeting. Can you just talk for a minute about what that journey was like?
Yeah, when I tell people $460,000 of debt, initially they're like, oh, great, you had a house, you paid off your house, big whoop. And I'm like, no, not a mortgage. This is consumer debt. Like I always tell people this is like the down and dirty debt, right? Yeah. This is credit cards and student loans and vehicles that you can't afford. This is real people debt, right? Everyday debt. And, nowadays, now that I'm working a little bit in a more high profile type position, people are like, well, of course you paid your debt off. Like you probably have a great salary, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a second. This was back when my husband and I first got married. Like this was in 2007, the Great Recession. Back then we had just gotten married. We were making $30,000 a year combined. So I just need to set the stage. Like I need people to understand, like this was not a good situation. And so it was a 7.5 years, really, almost 8-year journey of just facing reality, as John Deloney would say, getting our income up, learning to live on less than we make, and just wrapping our arms around each other and going, we're gonna accomplish this come hell or high water. We don't care what it takes. And the rest is history. We were able to pay it all off.
And so you attribute much of your ability to do that to a budget,
Mhm.
which most Americans don't have, right? And
Yeah.
don't. And so if somebody's listening, like, okay, great. So that's a huge accomplishment. I don't have a budget. I don't have any idea where to get started. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say two things. I'd say a budget is the foundation. It's the tool that you need, in order to accomplish anything financially. A budget is basically a map to get to your financial goals. That's how I like to talk about it. But the truth is, a budget is simply a plan for your money. It's you deciding ahead of time. This month, this is how I'm going to spend my money. And I would suggest for people to do a brand new budget every single month, or at least tweak the budget that they have every single month, because every month is different and you get to decide how you spend that money. However, it's very important to also say, like, yes, you need the budget, but the budget is not a magic trick. Like,
Right.
it's a plan for your money, but it's not a magic trick. You have to add money to it in order for it to function in the way that you want and need it to function. And so there is this dual play of you need that budget, but most of us are also looking at, in order to make it function, we've got to do one of two things. We've got to get our spending down and we've got to get our income up. And so those are the two factors that go into that budget in order to make it function. Because like I said, it's not a magic trick.
Yeah. And, again, I mentioned I follow you a bit on Instagram and you talk a bit about what are some ways to get that top number up. And so we'll
Mhm.
probably come back to that in a moment. But what are some, so, okay, fine, we need to start a budget and it's not a magic trick. What are some common mistakes that you've seen in folks when they actually start to work to create a budget or stick to a budget?
It runs the gamut. I would say the first thing is just a lack of consistency. It's like, okay, Jade, I did my budget. And then it's like, then I never looked at it ever again.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
like, okay, how is it providing the accountability you need if you never look at it? Which is why I really love the budget that we have here at Ramsey Solutions, and the budget that I've been using for over a decade. It's called Every Dollar. And it's great because it's on your phone and it's in real time. You spend money and the next day the transactions are in your phone. You can track them and it'll say, like, if you said, hey, I'm going to spend, I don't know, $600 this month on food. Well, I went to Publix yesterday and I spent $20. Well, now it's going to show you that you have $580 left. Like, it's in real time. And so I think that really helps people with that first issue, which is really consistency in staying plugged in and tuned into it. And so it helps with that. So I'd say that's problem number one. Problem number two is I think that people, they're a little vague with their numbers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, I made my budget. And then I'll go look at it and I'm like, hey, you left out some really important things on here. Like, you've got the basics, like you've got rent and cell phone and gas, but you don't have any entertainment on here, or you don't have, I know you go to get coffee.
You went to
don't have any-
Starbucks 5 times this week. That cost you
Yeah.
$400. You have to put that in your budget.
You got to put that in there. And so there's this part of people's brain that's like, it's, I don't know what you would call it. It's just a lack of reality when it comes to what the true numbers are. So I always tell people when it comes to budgeting, you're really looking to have three characteristics. You want it to be detailed, which is thinking about every single thing that you could possibly spend money on in a month. You want to be realistic. So, if you're a family of 6 and you put $400 for food, you're living in a fantasy at that point. You're just waiting to fail.
Especially if
So I'm
one of
like,
them is a 15-year-old high school boy, which is our situation. So,
bro, that is, I feel sorry for you. That's you need a whole supermarket in your refrigerator. And so you're being realistic. And finally, you have to learn to be flexible. Life is fluid and things come up and stuff happens. And it's not a failure if you have to move money from one category and shift it to another. Like grandma's birthday comes up, you forgot about it. That's okay. We can make changes within the budget. And so as long as it's detailed, realistic, and flexible, you're kind of off to the races. And that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So, Jade, your book, it just came out this past December. Money's Not a Math Problem, which to our listeners, look, 70-page, super easy read. And so I listen, you got to go get the book. But what I like about the book is it's not a typical budgeting book. It's not about decimals. It's not about spreadsheets. It's not about percentages. You really outline 5 lies that people believe about money, and then you address those with 5 truths that really can be life-changing if people can get their minds around these. And so I love the approach. What are the 2 biggest lies that you see people falling into over and over again?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say probably with couples, the biggest lie is that, budgets are best done alone. I don't want to combine my money with my spouse. Like, this is
Right.
my paycheck and he's got debt.
Yeah.
Like,
If I were to
there's
say that to my wife, we'd have a problem, I think.
listen, Jason, I try to tell people all the time, if my husband ever said to me, Jade, I'll take care of the bank account, you take care of the babies. Like, it'd be an unsolved mystery, Jason. Like, they wouldn't be able to find him. They'd be like, what happened to Sam?
Yeah.
So you already know
Yeah.
this is a touchy subject. Like, it's almost like you're on one side of the equation or the other. Some people are like, yes, this is the only way, combine finances. And other people, for various reasons, whether it's past traumas or bad relationships or bad experiences, they're like, listen, I will not, it makes me feel some type of way, Jade, when you tell me to combine my money with my spouse because you don't know what I've been through, or I don't want to expose myself in that way. And so there's really a lot of teaching and unpacking that has to be done around that area for people to feel like they can. Because the truth is that mindset, the idea of combining your money with your spouse and there being this open conversation and very communicative, that only works within healthy relationships.
Right.
And so a lot of times when we start talking about that, what it does, Jason, is it exposes where people have kind of these breakdowns in their relationship, and it kind of leads to a bigger, conversation that usually involves some sort of counseling and getting to the root of, hey, why is there this trust breakdown? And why is there this kind of fear that comes up when we talk about that? Because if you can't be completely transparent with the person that you sleep in the same bed with every night, the person that you've pledged your, eternity to, then who else is there?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a big conversation. And, I always just say, you're one. Dave Ramsey would say, when you become married, you become French. Oui, oui, right?
Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
and so I always tell people, I say the first place to start is if you can do what I call a vocab rehab, you're headed in the right direction, because so much of us will say things without really thinking about the implication of it. Like I said before, oh, it's my money and it's his debt and I
Right.
got paid and that's your bill and this is my savings. And we're separating ourselves just with our
Right.
language.
Yeah.
But if we can start to say things like, hey, what are we doing with our money? And did we get paid? And are we on a budget? And is this, is this our plan?
Yeah.
Talking like that brings the other person in. And so that's a good place to start if you're listening and you're going, okay, where can I start? And that's a good place to just kind of get the ball rolling there.
So, and I don't know about as much about personal finances, Jade, certainly as you do. I have spent a lot of time as a coach. And so I will tell you, one of the fastest ways you can know a team is not going to accomplish all that it could accomplish is if they start pointing fingers and saying, well, you this and I
Right.
this and I this. And my wife and I, we actually have, as it relates to our relationship, if we find ourselves in a moment of tension, which is more than I'd like to admit, probably all of it my fault, of course. We actually have a rule that we have to stop if we find ourselves talking about, well, you this and you that, and we have to recognize, no, wait a minute, we're on the same side. And so how do we
Same
come around
team.
to the same side of the table and actually solve the problem together instead of going at one another? So, yeah, incredibly
That's good.
important. So that's one lie. Anything else you got for us?
I would probably say that I'd probably say the next one is, let me pick. I might give you two.
Yeah.
One is that a budget is just a list of my debt and my bills.
Yeah.
Like, it's just those priorities. And then anything left, like, I get to just, it's up for grabs. Like, it's treat yourself. Right. And that was my biggest problem coming out of college is like, okay, hey, I know what it costs to pay my rent, my utilities, my phone bill, my gas, my car note. Can't I just spend everything else? Do I really need to plan out everything else? Shouldn't that just be for me? And I think that's kind of where a lot of folks are. Hey, I'm adulting, Jade. I'm paying my bills on time, and I've got a couple grand extra or a couple hundred extra, and that money's just for me. I don't want to put any guardrails around that, or I don't want to put any plan or blueprint around that. And I'm like, listen, most Americans, there's a statistic out there that says like 70% or something like that of Americans, if you just said to them, hey, what'd you spend last month? They don't know.
Yeah.
If you said, hey, what'd you spend on food last month? They don't know. If you said, hey, what'd you spend on going out or entertainment? They really don't know. And so it goes back to stewardship, to say, okay, this is my money. And everything we have, I mean, at the end of the day is on loan from God, right?
Yeah.
The earth is God's and everything in it. And so when we have our money, we have to treat it as such, like we're managers of this money and we should be good stewards of it. And so part of that is being able to say, here's what I did with it. Here's what, like if somebody gave you, Jason, if you said, hey, I'm giving you this investment and I'm giving you this sum of money, and then you're checking in, you want that person to be able to say, here's exactly what I did with that money. Yeah. Whether I lost it or I added more to it, at least I was aware of the process, right? Yeah. And so with the budget, we're really doing that. We're making ourselves aware. And by doing that, most of us feel like we have more and we're able to actually accomplish our goals. So, a budget is not just a list of your debts. It's you taking every single dollar and giving every single dollar an assignment. And it doesn't have to be bad and boring. Some of that money can go towards clothes or getting your nails done. It's just you keeping a record.
Strong nail game, by the way.
Come on, somebody. I try to come through.
You're, I know a lot of our listeners, that might not necessarily be seeking God's best interest for their life, but you hit on something there. I think that's really important to recognize. You either have to have this perspective or you don't. And if you don't, and you're wrong, well, that's a tough place to be. But if we do believe that the earth is God's and everything in it, and if we believe, because a lot of times we think, like even in the church, it's like, okay, well, maybe I tithe 10%, and so that's God's. Well, no. The reality is everything is God's, and He gives it to us to steward, as you said.
Yeah.
And you made the point, like, how are we stewarding it well? And so if you believe that, if you just use that framework that you set up, I mean, I have a staff, right? And if I go to one of my staff members and say, okay, this was your budget for last year, how'd you spend it? Where'd it go? And they're like, I really have no idea. And then I realize, okay, well, by the way, you did overspend by 20%. And like the likelihood of me wanting to give them a larger budget next year is probably pretty slim. And so, man, when you put that in this cosmic supernatural realm, if like money is a challenge for you, and if you really are hoping that God will somehow magically bless you with resources, man, we really do need to take a look at, are we stewarding it well? And
well, yeah.
I don't know of anyone who I've interacted with in my life who said, hey, I manage my money as closely as I have, whether a lot or a little, and I was very faithful, even to be generous back to the church or back to the community or whatever that is, and say, and I really regret that. It didn't pay off. Like it didn't actually turn around. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
And, there is that part of it that if you're like, hey, Jade, I'm not rocking with the Bible or scripture yet. Listen, I respect that. But you can also look at it from this angle, which is I also tell people, your money is the most expensive thing that you own. Yeah. And a lot of people kind of are like, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? I'm like, think about it. Your money is so expensive. Think about what the cost is for you to obtain it. For most of us, it's time away from our family, the people we love the most, time away from our children. It costs us sleep, right? Yeah. For a lot of people, we do jobs that we don't even really love. And so it's a mental strain and it costs us stress and worry. And there's those mental calories gained. We spend so much to be able to bring this income in. The least we can do is treat it with care. Yeah. It's a sign of self-respect at that point to treat the most expensive thing that we have with care. If you bought a Louis bag, you wouldn't just take it in the house and toss it in the corner. Right. You would never do that. You know what I mean? If you
just to be clear, I wouldn't buy a Louis bag.
I never listen. I probably wouldn't either. But whatever it is, if you buy a brand new vehicle, it's like you park all the way at the end of the lot so that nobody scuffs it. You know, you take care of the things that you realize the value of. And I think a lot of times people need to stop and realize your cash money is the most expensive thing you have. Yeah. Treat it with care.
And just to be clear, I'm not knocking anybody that's bought a Louis bag. I'm just saying I don't know that Louis Vuitton handbags look good on me. That's not the look that I personally go for. But if it looks good on you and you got the cash, go for it.
Hope in Real Life family, I want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that we have for you for your own personal development, spiritual enrichment, and really a way for you to find a bit more hope in real life. We have a tool for you called the Hope in Real Life app. It offers things like parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. If you're looking for it, there's even Bible reading plans in there. And there's a community where you can even share prayer requests and know that someone is praying for you for whatever it is that you have going on in your life. It's available right now in the Apple App Store or in Google Play. You can search Hope in Real Life in both stores, or you can use the download link that is in the show notes. Remember, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible even in real life.
What do you say to a person who says, yeah, budgeting, because I know we've got like some young adult listeners. Yeah, budgeting, that sounds like something that people do when they become adults or when they have children or when they have to start thinking about college, which most people probably don't start doing to their kids or juniors in high school anyway. But what would you, which is probably too late, what would you say to the young person that says, hey, budget, good idea. I'll start doing that when I'm an adult?
I would say that it's never too early to start um, being intentional with your money, because so much of what we know about money has to do with time and
Yeah.
compound interest over time,
Right.
right? And so, um, if you can get a head start with making the right decisions and putting those right habits in place, it's just gonna serve you well. It's gonna make it easier for you, because I don't think I have to explain to anybody how difficult it is to quit a bad habit and start a new good habit, right? Like
Yeah.
anybody who's ever been like, "Oh my gosh, I have to stop biting my nails," or anybody who's been like, "I got to start eating better." It's hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to stop a behavior that we've made regular
Yeah.
and suddenly pick up a new routine. It's not to say that it can't be done, because it can, but why not just start it from the jump is what I'm saying. And so something as simple as budgeting is something that you can do easily. Like I said, it's on the app. And the bigger part of it is it's going to save you a lot of mistakes. You
Yeah.
know, I've been working on this project here at Ramsey. It's called the grad guide. And it goes through basically 5 mistakes that you shouldn't make in college. And it talks to young adults. And I talk about, there's 2 types of mistakes. There's the mistakes that you're like, hey, this is my first rodeo. I didn't know any better. I tried, and, I had the best effort and best intention, and it just turned out to,
Right.
bomb. It was a mistake. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, that's living life, right? That's school of hard knocks. Then you've got the other mistake that's like, somebody literally told you, hey, don't do that. Or like, if you do that, you're going to die. And you're like, I'm going to try it anyway. And then, it's, and you have the opportunity to learn from someone's mistake and
Yeah.
you don't. That's the type of mistake that I like to avoid. And
Yeah.
so, you've got someone like me on the other side of things going, listen, if you can get your financial priorities and get your smarts on early on and learn about this thing and start these habits and, avoid debt and start budgeting and save up money, and you listen to that and go, no, I don't think so, then I'm like, hey, you're making the worst kind of mistake that there is, because you're talking to someone who was deeply in debt, had to dig her way out, had to spend almost a decade righting wrongs,
Yeah.
and that's not fun. And I don't wish that on anybody. And so, this is your wake up call to kind of go, okay, like, how many more years do I want to wander in this wilderness?
Yeah.
It's up to you to make those choices.
One of the things that should be on your list is don't fill out the credit card application on campus just to get the free T-shirt. Don't do that
Oy.
if you're in college.
Don't do it.
hey,
It's a slippery slope.
You've got so sometimes when you're talking about hard things, you've got to actually take a look in the mirror, right? Like, you got to say, okay, where am I? And that's not always comfortable. But this is one of those topics. Like, what do you think a person's debt actually says about them? Like, what does it say about their beliefs? What does it say about their idols?
Ooh.
Anything you would say to that? If somebody's who's like, hey, let's just take a real hard look at what's going on in my heart and in my life right now.
Yeah, I mean, where your money is, that's where your heart is also. And so all the time people say to me to my face, Jay, if I say, hey, what do you prioritize? Like, what do you care about? oh, and they'll say all the right things. I want to set up my kids for success. And, I want my kids to have a better life than I had. And yes, I value my family. What do we all say? My family is the most important thing to me.
Right.
Right. But if I were to look in your bank account, I would probably find the opposite. And so this is where that incongruency happens, where we say, I value this, but our money shows like, weirdly, you value Chick-fil-A a little bit more than you value your kids' college. Like, let's be honest, that's what we're choosing. And so it's so important to have that kind of, whatever you want to call it, that come to Jesus, that choose reality moment of looking and saying, I say, and my intent is good here, that I value my kids, that I want to set my family up for success, that if something, God forbid, were to happen to me, I want my husband or wife to be well off, like be okay. We say those things inwardly or outwardly, or that's the intent. But if we look at our money, we are not doing anything to honor that. So the bank statement, that is it's like blood work.
Yeah.
It shows where all the issues are.
Yeah.
Right? When you get your blood drawn and you get that report back and it goes line by line and you can see if you're in a healthy state or a negative state, right?
Yep.
And the budget is the same way. When you pull up that bank statement, when you start doing a budget and you go line by line and you go, oh my goodness, like this car note is what's keeping me from having the proper life insurance, or this car note is keeping me from investing for a future. If I don't invest, my kids are going to have to take care of me when I can't work anymore. Yeah. Oh my goodness, me stopping at Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and Chipotle and doing this lifestyle, this is what's keeping me from saving up for my kids' college. It's a hard place. It's a strike of reality that you're like, oh my gosh. And it's uncomfortable. And lucky for you guys, I like uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah. And we don't shy away from those and I think, if I had to sum up what you're saying is it's real easy to say one thing. But if you really believe that, which I believe our listeners do, I believe you've got folks out there that really do, their family really is the most important thing, but we just get caught up in these habits that if we don't have the discipline to stop.
Yeah.
And to actually look at where our money's going, man, we're going to find ourselves in a situation, or at least the likelihood of finding ourselves in a challenging situation or a place we never wanted to be in ourselves, or we never wanted our kids to be. That likelihood goes up. And so we've got to be disciplined to press pause and actually see where our money's going.
Yeah. And, I want to qualify that a little bit because a lot of people might be thinking, well, Jade, that's easy for you to say. But, when my husband and I were in debt, I remember, we started getting to that age where you're thinking about having a family. And I just remember thinking, I can never have a family like this. Like, we can't even, I'd come home some days and the water is turned off. I come home some days and the lights are off. Like, I can't, the decisions that I'm making are not allowing, you know what I mean? Like I said, there's a incongruency that's there. And so I remember saying to my husband, if we don't do this, we can't have a family. Yeah. And so in our case, and I would never, in no way am I saying that you have to be debt free or anything like that before you start a family. Hear me very clearly. I'm not saying that. But in our case, we decided we need to get certain things financially in order so that we can have this life that we say we want, and so that we can value the things that we say we want. And for us, we were married 10 years before we started our family. We were married 11 years before we could save up to buy a house. So there were all these things that we delayed in order to do the right way. And so I just want you guys to hear that I'm saying that from a place of having been there.
Yeah.
And having made those tough choices.
If you had to say, if we just were going to jump super practical, like, hey, these are your primary buckets that you need to focus on out of the gate when it comes to budgeting, what practical advice would you give?
Yeah. So I would frame everything up through the baby steps. And so real quick, I'll give you a quick framework on that, and then I'll show you how it relates to the budget. So we teach a series of baby steps. It's 7 steps, and you walk them in order. And so and you do one at a time. So the first baby step for anybody, I don't care, you can decide based on the baby step where you're at. The first baby step is you need $1,000 saved. You would be shocked. 56% of Americans can't cover $1,000 emergency. Wow. They'd have to go to a credit card or do something else. And so to just take $1,000, set it aside in cash. I don't care if you put it in your sock drawer. Then after that, with whatever money you can scrounge up, Maybe you have money saved beyond $1,000. You're going to take that money and you're going to do baby step 2, which is you're going to pay off all of your consumer debt. So that's everything except your mortgage. So if you have student loans, car notes, credit cards, you pay everything off, and you do it using a method called the Debt Snowball. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but that's step 2. And then after you've done that, then you go to step 3 and you say, okay, all my debt's cleared. Now I need more savings. Like $1,000 is not going to cut it. So now you get to save up 3 to 6 months of expenses. It's up to you if you want to do 3 months or 6 months, depending on your tolerance or whatnot. And then after that, you start investing. Once you get that fully funded emergency fund, now we start investing. We invest 15% of our paycheck every single month. That's how it goes. We're planning for the future. That's going into retirement. And now baby steps 4, 5, and 6, these are the only ones that we can do at the same time. So we can be investing that 15%. We can put a little aside for our kids' college. And if we want to, if we have a home, we can start paying off, little by little, doing some extra payments on the house. And then baby step 7 is you've paid off your house, you have no debt, and you're just being generous and you're living your life like it's golden. And so that's the framework of the baby steps. How it relates to budgeting is wherever you are in the baby steps, like you might be listening right now and you say, well, Jade, that's great. I don't have any debt and I have a mortgage but I'm not investing. Then you would say, okay, now that I'm doing my budget, I need to make sure that I'm accounting for that 15%. So basically the baby steps are telling you the priorities that need to be accomplished with your budget. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if you're in baby step 2 and you say, Jade, I have, credit card debt and car loans to pay off, then when you make your budget every month, you need to make sure that there's extra margin to make extra payments on those things so that you can pay off that debt quickly.
So I appreciate that. And you mentioned Debt Snowball. Since we're on it, you just want to take a moment and just kind of unpack that for a second for those who might
I'd
be
love
listening.
to. So with the Debt Snowball, this is what me and my husband did. With the Debt Snowball, you take every debt that you have and you list it by balance, full balance, smallest to largest. So for instance, if you have a car payment, maybe you're paying $400 a month, but the entire thing is like $32,000. You're looking at the $32,000. So you're listing it by full balance, smallest to largest. Some of you might be thinking, Jade, what about the interest rate? Trust me, the interest rate doesn't matter. When you do this the right way, it's going to be negligible in the end. And so, and one of the reasons that I wrote Money's Not a Math Problem is because when we're trying to do something like pay off debt, it's not always about the math. It's about the psychological implication of it. We want to keep going. We need to feel motivated.
That's right.
And so when you list them smallest to largest, you pay off the small one first. Most of us have like a little $300 or $400 debt. When you knock that out, you get that hit of dopamine that makes you go, ooh, I feel great. I accomplished something.
That's like losing the first 2 pounds in a weight loss program. Like, I can keep going. I can do this.
I can keep going. And you see the result of it. It feels great. And so that's how this works. And so what you do is once they're listed smallest to largest, you pay minimum payments on everything because you don't want, to be delinquent. You don't want bill collectors calling you because that sucks. I know firsthand. And so you make minimum payments, but then with any money that you can find extra, scrounge it up, side hustle it up, you throw all that money at the smallest debt until you knock it out. And so then once that debt's paid off, not only have you freed up that minimum payment, but you freed up all the extra money you had with it. And now you can pile that onto the next smallest debt. And so it creates a snowball effect, more and more money that you have to throw at each debt as you get to it.
So a couple more questions here. And these just kind of keep coming to mind while we got you on the show. But
yeah, let's go.
You mentioned, so you're an artist, you're a vocalist, husband's a musician. This is like more than ever. I feel like I'm hearing people talk about side hustles and, less and less people just have one job. So what that means though, is a lot of people might have an irregular income or they might freelance. Any pointers for folks who are out there like, hey, I don't just make $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month. I don't know how much I'm going to make in any given month. Any advice you give?
About like an irregular income?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. With irregular income, there's a couple of ways that you can approach that. My husband and I had that. I work on commission and I still have an irregular income. And so two ways to approach it. If you check out Every Dollar, which is the budgeting app I'm always talking about, there's a really cool thing in there. It's called paycheck planning. And essentially what you're doing is you're planning out your paychecks as opposed to thinking about you're thinking about your budget as a whole, but it's dwindling it down to, okay, when I get this paycheck, what can I pay with it? And you're scheduling it out by paycheck. And so when you do that, at the core, what you're doing is you're prioritizing the most important things first. So whenever you have an irregular income, you start with the most important things. First is rent, no matter what. Then you're doing utilities, then food, then transportation, because you got to have those. And then if you say, okay, I've still got money left, then you go to the next important things. Maybe it's daycare, or maybe it's, and you go insurances, and you go down the line. And so what I always tell people with irregular income is budget with the bare minimum. Like, you can kind of look at a month and say, yeah, maybe I make anywhere from 5 to 8 grand. Well, budget 5 grand, right? And if you can make it work with 5, then when the other extra 3 comes, now we can say, okay, now we can put more to groceries, or now we can, beef up another category a little bit more. But start with those 4 walls first, the ones I mentioned, the 4 most important categories, and then go down by order of priority. And so that's how that works. And if you're at a point where you're like, Jade, it's not that dire for me, even at the minimum, I know that it's enough. That's excellent. What I would say is, if you can always be a month ahead, I think that that's the most, that's the best place to be. So if you're in real estate, or, like us, we were in music, if let's say it takes $7,000 a month to make your house tick, if you can get a month ahead, and so you've always got 14,000, that's great, because you kind of just know that you're okay no matter what.
Hope in Real Life family, we just want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that is available to you. I know a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily active in a church, might not even be a Christian. We are still thankful that you're spending time with us. However, we do get asked regularly, how can we find out more about your church, or even just about this Jesus guy? And so if that is you, I want you to know you can tune in to gethope.tv. We have live services on Saturday, 4:15 p.m. and 6 p.m., or on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. or 11:15 a.m. Those are Eastern Standard Times. If you can't tune in during those times, we will drop our YouTube link as well as our podcast link down in the show notes. We would love to have you join in with us. Let's keep sharing some hope. Got a lot of parents out there. At what age is it appropriate to start talking to your kids about money, about budgeting? How the world, because you made a great point earlier. Like, these aren't things, we teach so many things in school, not a knock on public schools, but man, of all the things that we could learn, like how to handle our money seems like it should be on the list. What age do you start talking to your kids about this stuff?
Yeah, I think you start as early as possible, and you put it in a way that they can understand. So I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. And so I'm not talking to them about, trust funds and investments, but I do talk to them about little things. Like, when we go to the store, what I want them to understand is that things are not free.
Right.
And so for right now, my husband, Sam, and I, the biggest thing we've been trying to get them to understand is, when I leave all day, every day, I'm going to a job and I'm putting forth effort. And for my effort, I get certificates of appreciation called money. And that money allows us to buy the groceries in the house, and it allows us to buy the bed that you sleep in. And so just openly talking about the fact that things cost money or cost effort is what I'm trying to teach them. And so another way to reinforce that is, then when I say, okay, son, I need you to clear off the table, he might say, well, do I get money for that? And I might say, well, that's just your personal responsibility in the house. Let's do something. Let's do another effort that maybe you can get paid for. And so, I'll ask him to do, a
By the
small
way,
chore.
you did get food. So that's kind of
That's
payment.
pay. Okay. That's a certificate of appreciation right there. And so we're just teaching them that you can do a certain effort, and you can get money in response. And then it's taking them to the store and letting them realize, hey, $2 can't buy you everything. It can only buy what $2 can buy. And so they're starting to learn that. And so that's at a younger age. And of course, as they get older, you start talking about things like college and school. I do think it's important to have those conversations early and often as parents regarding expectation. Yeah, I expect you to further your education. I don't care if it's college, or you go to a trade school, or you go, do a certificate online to get the certification. Whatever it is, there's an expectation that you're going to further your education. Now let's talk about cost. Yeah, your dad and I, we've got some money set aside, and here's what it's for. Or we've got some money, but we expect you to pay half. Like, make sure you're having those conversations, because when you don't, You look up, they're 16, 17, and they're choosing a school that nobody can afford.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, you're going into student loan debt, you or the children or both.
Right.
And so having those conversations, very important.
Okay. Well, Jade, we've had a great time together. Let me ask you this: if there's anything, I mean, you give your life to this topic. I mean, it's obvious that you understand the tension that this can bring, and not only that, but the freedom and the hope that we can find on the other side of these challenges. We've covered a lot of territory, but if there was, in your experience, if there was any one thing that maybe we didn't cover, that if you could speak directly to the person that's in a place that they would not describe as financial freedom, what advice would you give to them that we haven't covered yet?
I would say two things. I would say that debt is something that you need to wage war against
Hmm.
in your life and in your home, because debt is a thief and it steals from us. And, unfortunately, culture has told us that this is just the way of the world. Like, you need debt because you need your credit score, and you need debt to build your credit score, and credit score to build your debt. And that's just completely false. And there's not very many people
That's
saying the
because the people
opposite.
that are telling that narrative want your money. That's why.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. These people, and I say it all the time, the people who benefit from your bondage will never help you fight for freedom.
Yeah.
And so debt benefits from you being in debt. The borrower is slave to the lender. And so you kind of, before you know it, it's so easy to get caught in that trap. And there's not very many people out there saying, hey, you don't need to do that. Like, there's another way, And so I hope that you hear that and kind of do a quick overhaul of your emotions and go, yeah, I do feel like I'm in bondage. I do feel like I'm kind of slave to this lender, and I'm working because I have to pay off this debt, and I'm working because of that. And debt motivates us to do things that we don't want to do. It makes us do things that we have to do, right?
Yeah.
And so my motivation for that person is just to know, like, there's a way out of that, and you don't have to stay that way. For my husband and I, it was 7.5 years, and what you need to know is the average person is out of debt. When they start working our program, they're out of debt in 2 years or less.
Wow.
Like, that's a drop in the bucket for freedom's sake.
Right.
And so just know, hey, the time's going to pass anyway. And you could look up in 2 years and you could be the same. You could be better off, or you could be worse off.
Yeah.
And that all depends on what you do in this moment. And so my advice to you would be, in this moment, to kind of make that first step forward so that in 2 years you look up and you're totally free.
That's beautiful. I would add on to that, to our listeners that are, and I love what you said, like, debt is bondage, and we need to wage war against it. The reality is, God didn't create us to be in bondage to other things. In fact, Jesus said, I came that you would have life and have it abundantly. And
That's
a
right.
large part of that is recognizing, like, no, and whether you believe this or not, you have a God that loves you, that does not desire for you to live life in bondage. And there's actually passages of scripture where, like, Jesus calls back to, hey, listen, if the sparrows in the sky are taken care of, your needs are going to be met. But like you said earlier, we do have a responsibility to do our part. And so I'm so grateful for you for really giving the better part of your life to helping people find freedom in this area that we desperately need. So thank you for that. As we wrap up, I mean, this podcast is called Hope in Real Life, and you're a real person, even though you're just on the other side of the screen, or maybe the earphones for many. But Jade, I'd love to know, for you, what are you the most hopeful for in your life? Maybe say in the next 5 years.
Most hopeful for,
Yeah.
My kids are very, very special, and I'm hopeful to see, like, who they turn into and how their leaders, and wherever they are, whether it's in their classroom or on their sports teams. And I just have a lot of hope in, when you do these principles are great things because they don't return void. Like, when you plant seeds, you plant corn seeds, you get corn, right? And
Right.
so I'm really excited because I know that my husband and I are planting seeds in them. And I know that the time is going to come where they're fully grown. And so I'm excited to see that. And that relates back to what we've been talking about with money. Like, you have the opportunity to plant seeds of prosperity and plant these seeds of financial peace. And when you do that, it will grow and you will be able to see the fruit of that. And so those are the things I'm most excited about.
Okay, so your book, Money's Not a Bath Problem, to our listeners. Listen, you need to go get this book. We'll say this, we've got 10 copies on hand. And so to the first 10 listeners that share this from Hope in Real Life, we will make sure that we get you a copy. We'll track you down, our team will, and we'll get you a copy of it. You can also drop a comment in whatever platform it is that you're seeing this and just say, money's not a math problem, and we'll make sure you get those. But that's only for the first 10 because we've already got those, and Jade's got plenty more that she would love for you to get your hands on. The other thing I would say is, as a part of this platform, Hope in Real Life, we actually have an app that we've created. We've got different growth tracks in there, marriage, parenting. We have one in finances as well. And quite honestly, a lot of our material runs hand in glove and parallel with a lot of the FPU stuff that you've already talked about and some of the baby steps that you have. But I would encourage you, check out the Hope in Real Life app. Our latest drop there is on money and motivation. That's a great resource. And we'll drop all the links, including a link to Jade's book in the show notes and everything that we talked about. And so, Jade, thank you so much for the time that you have given to us.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we look forward to having you back in the near future. And to all of our listeners, listen, I hope this has been valuable for you. It's been valuable for me. I've got a whole page of notes here. But listen, if you have somebody in your life that you know would benefit from this content, man, just take a second and share this with them. You never know just what one split second from you sharing something with someone else, the hope that it can bring to them in a life where they desperately need it. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Jade, thank you one more time for being here with us.
Thank you.
We will see you guys on the next episode. Love y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.